Hello there. So in this video, I'm going to be looking at how to write an awesome essay about literature. This is going to be especially important or interesting, hopefully, if you are an IGCSE literature student, or if you're just interested in poetry, literature in general, may also be of interest. So the poem we're going to use is called The Instant of My Death by Sarah Jackson. If you don't know this poem, it's a great poem. I did a video about this as well. So if you're not aware of it, I would suggest you pause this video, go check out the analysis of the poem, and then come back here to see how we're going to explore it and answer a question about it. So the question we're going to use is this. It's quite a standard IGCSE style question. Explore the ways in which Jackson uses words and images to striking effect in this poem. So the next stage here really is our plan of attack. How are we going to actually answer that question? And I pick out these three things you can do. And if you do them and understand them, you can take this into any kind of poetry style exam or literature style exam. And it should give you some confidence when you're faced with a question. So the first thing we do is pick out the keywords in the question, really understand what the question is asking of us. Second thing is to brainstorm. How are you going to answer that in your own words? Come up with a 1-sentence or 2-sentence response, and we're going to call that your thesis statement or claim to help to the answer for the question. And the next part is, how do you justify that? How do you show that your thesis statement is actually true? So we'll pick out and plan evidence or quotes and what are we going to say about them and put them in order. It can be the same order as the poem, or it could be a different order that makes sense to you. That's fine. So first thing, pick out the keywords in the question. I would say these are the main keywords. Explore, as opposed to list, is very different. Words and images, clearly. And then striking effect, I think, is the word that really stands out for me. And I'm going to be coming back to that in my answer, and you'll see the full answer in a moment. The next thing we do is come up with a thesis statement. So in my own words again, how am I going to answer that question? So I came up with this. Jackson takes us on a long bus journey as she tries to discover India and herself. What begins as a sleepy trip becomes a moment of enlightenment as she suddenly realizes what life and travel is about. So I think that's quite a nice summary of the poem and gets into the question as well. And so my next job really is to think about justifying, planning my answer, and justifying how this thesis statement is true. First thing I do is whack in the thesis statement itself, use that as my intro. And second thing, I'm going to start now going through the poem, breaking it into chunks. And I'm going to try and have a couple of keywords at the beginning of each section that will remind me what this section is about, and also some examples, very simple, not long sentences, about what kind of examples I want to use here. So that's the first one. It sets the scene. The third paragraph is going to be about how the middle section seems quite a sleepy, dull journey. A couple of examples there that I can throw in, but again, not too much detail. That's enough. Fourth section is about the boys, where it gets really interesting. So this is probably going to be the section that's the longest, because it is, frankly, the most striking part of the poem. And again, a few examples to help me along. In a minute, I'm going to expand those into a full paragraph. I'll show you how to do that. Next section is the aftermath. The fifth paragraph is going to be about her reflecting on what's happened, and that brings us towards the overall message, I guess, of what the poem is. Sixth section, if you can talk about the title and the form or structure and link it to the question, that's the important part, then that can be really effective. And again, I've got a few reminders there of what I want to talk about. And then finally, a conclusion. I'm going to go back in the conclusion and show how my thesis statement is correct and how I justified it. All right, so let's have a look at an answer. This is my plan, 7-point plan here, and now I'm going to show you each of these paragraphs, how I've blown them up and developed them. Okay, so the first 2 points together, we've got the thesis statement, which I already read out earlier, and then the second paragraph. At the start, so it's kind of signposting where I am for the examiner, we find the speaker on a rural, uncomfortable Indian bus. We is good rather than I, makes it more inclusive. And rural and uncomfortable, good adjectives that quickly show the examiner you get this part of the poem. We get what's happening here. So that's a nice topic sentence. Then I need to add in some examples or evidence. The first striking image is the simile of the damp cat rubbing against her, which suggests something clammy, wet, and unpleasant. Again, I've got a technical term there, which is good, and I've got 3 nice adjectives that, again, really quickly explain the effect. We also see the image of her friend reading the Jakarta Tales, a symbolic book and striking image that explains the Buddha's journey of enlightenment and also makes us wonder if the speaker is on her own personal journey. Final paragraph wraps the whole thing up, brings it back a little bit towards the question. Third section. In the next section, again, signposting for the examiner, we see how sleepy the speaker is and how she's disconnected from her surroundings. Again, sleepy, disconnected, good adjectives. Now, some evidence. The long assonance, the vowel sounds in the lines grinding, tripping, and rose up around us draws the line out and reflects her drowsy feelings. Jackson also uses a semantic field relating to sleep to strikingly show, there's that key word again, how monotonous this journey feels. The counting cows, as opposed to the usual sheep, the eyes that glaze over, and Spitty being propped open by mountain peaks, also an example of pathetic fallacy, all remind us of sleep. At this point in the journey, the speaker seems distant from these mountains and lacks a clear purpose. Again, final sentence kind of wraps things up. Now let's move on. The next section is where really something striking happens, so it's a little bit longer, which is fine. As we read on, again, signposting, there's a striking engagement, keyword, with a local boy that takes us by surprise. Once the bus arrives at Grampu, the speaker describes the boy as a black-eyed bean wearing a red flannel. You see how I weave those quotes in rather than in the line we can see. This is a more natural way of doing it. Both these images stand out. The bean image makes him seem tiny, while the coloured shirt creates a contrast with the grey surroundings, making him memorable. As he turns, the speaker says, "He shot me," with a toy gun. At first, we're reminded of the ominous title that suggests death. Jackson also leaves us waiting slightly thanks to the enjambment after "shot me," which adds to the tension. When we're told she was shot by a toy gun, there's a striking caesura or full stop, which makes us pause mid-line to realise what has actually happened. The use of punctuation and imagery combine effectively here to explain this surprising encounter. Okay, so quite a lot of detail here and reaction, not just examples, but I have to react to those examples and explain their effect. Now, in the aftermath of seeing the boy, the bus may have moved on, but the speaker is still thinking about this moment. Her real purpose in travelling, it seems, may not be to visit the mountains or even to read books about enlightenment, like her friend, but rather to interact with people and experience life firsthand. Jackson also uses the unusual image of the fat man cracking open an apple, which may symbolise knowledge. And then moving on to the final section as we get towards the conclusion, if I can talk about the form effectively, then it's a good thing to do. Finally, Jackson uses a highly unusual form to describe this journey of discovery. The title itself uses misdirection. Nobody dies, though Jackson may argue she has been reborn after this experience. The poem itself is irregular, with mostly two-line stanzas and no rhyme scheme. The constant enjambment suggests uncertainty and may also reflect the movement of the bus as it winds its way up the mountain, going side to side. Interestingly, Jackson also uses the motif of two, with two lines, two crags, two roads, two halves of an apple, and importantly, two selves, the one before and after this journey. So you can see me linking it back to the main question there. Overall, the form of the poem reflects the unexpected twists and turns of life as a traveller. Again, that final line kind of sums everything up. And then a conclusion. Nothing new in the conclusion, no more examples. In your own words, go back to the thesis statement, show how you proved it was true. In conclusion, Jackson uses a striking narrative story along with powerful imagery to reflect the change she undergoes on this bus journey. What begins as a sleepy, uneventful, disconnected, there's triple adjectives there, trip, is transformed by a momentary encounter with a young boy. Because of this, the speaker realizes that truth is not to be found in the pages of a book, unlike her companion, but rather out there in the real world with real people, where she may be able to find herself. Okay, there we go. So really hope that's given you some ideas and pointers about how to plan and deliver your essay. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy that, please feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you very much.